Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, Korea's ruling and opposition parties and the families of the victims of April's ferry disaster failed to make any progress on talks aimed at getting Parliament moving again. They'll meet again later today. In Hong Kong, pro-democracy demonstrators test the limits of the authorities' patience for a second day after shutting down the centre of one of the world's great cities. Plus, on day 11 of the Incheon Asian Games, South Korea adds golds in men's tennis and kayak sprint. North Korea edges past South Korea 2-1 to reach the final in women's football. Daybreak begins now.
Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, September 30th, here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, Korea's ruling and opposition parties and the families of the Seoul ferry sinking victims will meet again for talks on this Tuesday over a special law that will investigate the disaster. This after the floor leaders of the two parties failed to agree on a way to end the ongoing parliamentary deadlock over that bill. That said, there are suggestions both sides will be able to come to some kind of arrangement ahead of a plenary session at the National Assembly that is set to begin today. Ji Myung-gil reports.
The months-long parliamentary gridlock is showing no signs of easing. Floor leaders of the country's two main rival parties held meetings throughout Monday, including a trilateral meeting with representatives of the victims' families that ended without results. It is unclear whether the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will attend Tuesday's plenary session, which was adjourned last week by the Assembly Speaker. However, the ruling Saenuri Party has said it will go ahead with legislating some 90 draft bills during the session and will not accept any more delays.
Yes, we will open Tuesday's plenary session and proceed under the Assembly Speaker's authority.
At a caucus of party lawmakers, main opposition party floor leader Park Young-san discussed the results of Monday's trilateral meeting, which failed to fix the upcoming parliamentary schedule, including timelines for government audits and interpellation session and next year's government budget. Hopes had been running high all day as both rival parties continued to convey their willingness to bring an end to the current impasse. Rival party floor leaders and representatives of the bereaved families say they will meet again Tuesday morning to try and mend their differences and normalize parliamentary affairs ahead of the plenary session. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea policy has strongly criticized Pyongyang for not making any attempt to meet its obligations on denuclearization. Speaking to reporters in Beijing on Monday after meeting with his Chinese counterpart, Huawei, Glyn Davies said Washington and Beijing firmly agree on the importance of a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. Davies is currently on a three-nation tour of this region for talks on the North's nuclear program. He will actually be in Seoul on this Tuesday, and then he'll travel to Tokyo on Wednesday. North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Soo-young will embark on a 10-day visit to Russia on Tuesday. Moscow's foreign ministry says Lee will meet with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and discuss the situation on the Korean peninsula. They'll also talk about ways to strengthen bilateral economic cooperation and joint efforts to boost trade. Discussions on resuming the multilateral talks on North Korea's denuclearization, also known as the six-party talks, are also high on the agenda. The North Korean official is also scheduled to meet other top Russian officials and visit Russia's Far East. The vice foreign ministers of South Korea and Japan will meet for talks later this week in the latest sign of their steadily warming bilateral ties. Seoul's foreign ministry says first vice minister Jo Tae-yong will travel to Tokyo on Wednesday for the 13th round of strategic dialogue. Joe and his Japanese counterpart, Akitaka Saiki, will address a range of pending bilateral issues, including, of course, North Korea. They're expected to discuss the details of a possible summit between their leaders as well. Now, some speculate this could take place in November on the sidelines of the APEC summit in the Chinese capital of Beijing. Now, thousands of delegates from almost 200 countries are gathered in the Korean alpine city of Pyeongchang for an international convention on biodiversity. Our Shin Se-min was there and filed this report.
Potatoes, corn, tomatoes, and beans, not so special, everyday produce. What you may not know is that you could be eating produce that comes with a twist in its genetic material. Living modified organisms, or LMOs as they are called, are living organisms that possess genetic material obtained through the use of modern biotechnology. In Korea last year, more than 8.8 million tons of LMO products were imported according to the Korea Biosafety Clearinghouse. These genetically engineered products like LMOs and GMOs may provide a possible solution to food shortages, but their effects on our ecosystems are not yet fully known. To raise awareness and create regulations for properly labeling LMO products and discuss issues related to biological diversity, nearly 20,000 delegates from over 190 nations have gathered in Pyeongchang, Gangwon-do Province. The executive secretary of the convention says many countries still have long ways to go in terms of securing our food safety as they don't properly mark LMO products.
Several countries still don't have legislation on labeling, but this is an issue that the protocol promotes, is so that shipments containing LMOs should be labeled accordingly. And if so, they need to have the necessary expertise to conduct such risk assessments.
The convention is also set to address a midterm evaluation on a 2011 to 2020 strategic plan for biodiversity, as well as adopting a Pyeongchang roadmap that helps to achieve UN Sustainable Development Goals. Among other agenda items, the building of a peace park inside a demilitarized zone will be a topic of discussion. Delegates will also discuss the feasibility of President Park Geun-hye's vision for the park, along with ways to get the North get engaged in its development. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Pyeongchang.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, in some economic news, Korea's finance minister is calling for a new economic strategy, saying Korea needs to be more than just a fast follower in the 21st century. Choi Kyung-hwan says the Korean economy should grow on the basis of original ideas, merged with science and information technology. He added that Korea is under growing pressure from highly competitive developing economies. The minister cited the case of the Chinese manufacturer Xiaomi, which actually overtook Samsung Electronics as the biggest smartphone vendor in China in the second quarter of this year. And some foreign manufacturers are actually gearing up to take on Samsung Electronics in its own backyard, right here in Korea's lucrative smartphone market. One of them is China's Huawei, which is hoping to make an impression here with its low-cost devices. Hwang Jie has the details.
Those in Korea trying to buy a new smartphone now have one more option. That is the X3 model from Chinese budget smartphone manufacturer Huawei Technologies, which hit local shelves on Tuesday. Huawei expects to lure Korean consumers with its affordably priced handsets, which are up to $400 cheaper than local brands like Samsung Electronics. Korea's smartphone market is considered difficult to break into, with most citizens loyal to Samsung and its domestic rival. Currently, the Korean tech giant controls around 60% of the local market, followed by LG Electronics. Apple, one of the world's most popular smartphone makers, holds below 10% of the local share. It's no surprise then that US-based Motorola gave up on the Korean market in 2012, while Taiwan's HTC also folded its Korean business in the same year. But it's not just Huawei that's aiming to take on the Korean smartphone market. Sony of Japan recently unveiled its high-end Xperia Z3 smartphone, which also boasts a cheaper price tag compared to local brands, pointing to even stiffer competition among local and foreign players. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
A seventh round of free trade negotiations between Korea and Vietnam has begun right here in Seoul. Representatives from the two sides are meeting for 4 days, where they will discuss issues ranging from products, services and investment. The seventh round of talks come after both Korea and Vietnam expressed an interest in concluding negotiations and signing the FTA by the end of this year. Discussions first started 2 years ago. Vietnam is Korea's 9th largest trading partner. Now, it always used to be the case that Japanese tourists would spend a lot more money in Korea than Korean travellers would spend in Japan, but times seem to be changing. The strength of the Korean currency against the yen has turned the tables, with Korean tourists enjoying a much stronger purchasing power when they travel to Japan. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Apart from trade, the strengthening of the Korean won against the Japanese yen is affecting the spending habits of tourists. The amount of money spent by Koreans while traveling overseas is expected to surpass that of Japanese tourists for the first time this year. This means Japanese tourists are spending less in Korea, while Koreans are buying more goods and services in Japan. Koreans spent an all-time high of $21.7 billion overseas last year, after recording a steady increase since 2009. The amount spent by the Japanese tourists last year was just $100 million higher. The Korea Culture and Tourism Institute says Koreans are taking advantage of the falling value of the Japanese yen against the Korean won, making it relatively cheaper for Koreans to buy Japanese goods than before. The current exchange rate hovers at around 951 to 100 yen, the lowest it's been since 2008. Traditionally, expenditures from Japanese tourists have been higher than their Korean counterparts, which is understandable given that Japan's gross domestic product is 4 times higher than Korea's, and that its population is more than 2 times greater. So will this trend continue over the long term? An analyst from IM Investment and Securities doesn't think so.
The Bank of Korea is expected to lower the country's main benchmark rate in the coming months. This, coupled with Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan's expansionary policies, will help to lower the value of the Korean currency by the end of this year.
The Bank of Korea lowered its interest rate by 25 basis points in August, ending a 15-month freeze. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, starting next month, about 1.3 million small and medium-sized businesses here in Korea will be exempt from tax investigations until the end of 2013. The National Tax Service says the move is aimed at creating an environment where taxpayers can focus on their businesses by getting rid of operation uncertainties, and hopefully this is going to revive the economy. The exemption applies to businesses with less than $95 million in annual sales that are struggling due to the economic stagnation we're feeling at the moment, and also includes those involved in the future growth engine industry, cultural contents and knowledge industry, or those areas where they're creating lots of jobs. A growing number of older Koreans appear to be breaking away from some rather long-held beliefs about marriage, divorce and what they want to do after they die. A report by Statistics Korea says about 47% of those aged between 50 and 64 said they want to be cremated after they die, which is nearly 3 times higher than those who want to be buried in the ground. The group, which includes baby boomers, were more progressive about marriage and divorce as well. More than 26% said that marriage is not a must anymore, and nearly 42% were not completely opposed to the idea of divorce, which is in contrast to 75% of their elders who said it was not something, divorce that is, that they find acceptable. Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning, the last day of September. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Very good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. Thousands of pro-democracy protesters remain occupying major thoroughfares in Hong Kong this morning, defying calls by officials to break up the, quote, illegal sit-ins. Early Tuesday, some in the crowd wore raincoats and goggles as they rested, just in case a similar police crackdown that had hit the demonstrators about 24 hours prior hits again. Both sides, demonstrators and authorities, had called for calm on Monday after riot police unleashed pepper spray and tear gas on the protesters, aggression not seen since 2005 during a World Trade Organization meeting. Some schools, bank branches, and businesses were closed as the city's Hang Seng Index dropped by 1.9% during the trading day. The sit-ins grew to other parts of the city, including the commercial district of Causeway Bay to Central's east and across the border to Kowloon's Mongkok. The largely young demonstrators chanted for the resignation of Hong Kong's chief executive C.Y. Leung, as well as for more genuine democratic reforms to the former British colony. The Hong Kong government, for its part, has cancelled the annual fireworks show celebrating China's National Day, which was to happen tomorrow, citing safety concerns. Residents in the Syrian city of Kobani say they are terrified as Islamic State militants continue to make gains toward the border region with Turkey. The London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the jihadist group was as close as 3 kilometers away from the mostly Kurdish city, and if they are successful, IS would gain a full stretch of land from the Turkish border to the group's declared capital of Raqqa, some 100 kilometers away. Eyewitnesses said the coalition airstrikes were too few and too far back from the front lines. This as a U.S. think tank analysis released on Monday an estimate that American military efforts against IS could cost between $2.4 billion and as much as $22 billion per year. Ashraf Ghani has been sworn in as Afghanistan's new president in the country's first democratic transfer of power. His successful replacement of Hamid Karzai tops months of political deadlock with runner-up Abdullah Abdullah, both who had accused the other of electoral fraud in the run-up votes earlier this year. Under a unity deal, the two will share power, with Abdullah Abdullah becoming Afghanistan's executive. And during Ghani's swearing-in ceremony yesterday, the Taliban said it launched suicide attacks in the country that killed at least 15 people. It called the government deal a U.S.-orchestrated sham. And finally, the 58-year-old Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has once again topped a Forbes magazine's rich list with an estimated net worth of some $81 billion. That makes it the 21st consecutive year that the philanthropist has come in first in the magazine's 400 richest people in America list. Forbes said Gates added $9 billion to his net worth this past year, in part thanks to a growth in his Microsoft shares, as well as other investment. Forbes added the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has given away some $30 billion since the year 2000, supporting efforts to eliminate smallpox and overhaul the American educational system. And earlier this month, you'll remember, the foundation pledged $50 million to fight the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, the single largest donation the foundation has ever pledged to a humanitarian cause.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we continue on with our 2014 Incheon Asian Games coverage, starting off in tennis. Now on Monday, South Korea added another gold medal when the duo of Chungyeon and Im Yong-gyu won the men's tennis doubles. And quite a battle between the South Korean duo and India's Sanam Singh and Saketh Mineni as the two pairs go back and forth in the match. But in the end, Chungyeon and Im Yong-gyu prevails with a 2-0 victory, 7-5, 7-6-2, winning Korea's first gold medal in the event in 28 years. And now shifting over to the men's 200-meter single kayak event, where another gold medal was claimed by a South Korean athlete. After South Korea saw some success over in the sculls event, this time in Cho Kwang-hee over in the 200-meter single kayak event, as he finishes first with a final time of 35.464 seconds, being the runner-up by more than a second. Now, the gold medal finish also gives Korea their first gold medal in the sport in 24 years when Chun In-sik won triple gold with the 1,000-meter single, two-person 500-meter, and the two-person 1,000-meter event during the 1990 Beijing Asian Games. Now, we've seen some surprise gold medal finishes from Korea, but a surprise silver medal isn't bad neither, right? Well, the country did win a surprise silver on Monday over in the men's 10-meter synchro platform. Now, having only won bronze medals in the event, a surprise silver medal from Korea as Kim Young-nam and Woo Ha-ram finished the final with 403.50 points, giving the nation their first ever silver medal in the event. Now, it's the best finish in Korean diving since the 2002 Busan Asian Games when South Korea won silver in the men's synchronized 3-meter springboard event. And now shifting over to women's football tournament where the two Koreas clashed during the semifinals on Monday night. And what a match this was, with the winner heading to the final as South Korea's Chung Sal-bin scores on a Ronaldo-esque free kick in the 11th minute, giving South Korea the 1-0 lead. When the 35th minute, Lee Ye-kyung scores the equalizer as the two sides go into the half with a goal each. Now, second half, both sides neck and neck, and with 3 minutes added on to the injury time, North Korea's Chung Yu-ri scores on the 90+3 mark, giving North Korea the 2-1 victory as South Korea fails to advance to their first Asian Games final. Now, South Korea added 4 bronze medals in the freestyle wrestling events on Monday night, with Iran dominating the sport. So before I say goodbye, let's take a look at the current medal standings at the Incheon Asian Games, and I'll see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Yesterday was a cool day. Highs in Seoul only made it to 20.7 degrees Celsius, but today should be slightly warmer than yesterday, reaching into low to mid-20s in many areas. And right now, most regions are waking up to sunny skies, and it should remain mostly to partly sunny throughout the day. But some regions down south, like Gwangju, Busan, and Jeju, could receive sporadic showers in the evening hours. Now, this morning is also the chilliest morning of the season here in Seoul, kicking off at 15 degrees Celsius. Then daytime highs in the capital and Daegu will rise to 23, and Gwangju and Busan will make it to 27 and 24 degrees respectively. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see highs of 24, and Dokdo peaks at 17. And over in Incheon, we'll have typical autumn weather as well, under mostly to partly sunny skies, with highs peaking to 22 degrees Celsius, which is a slightly cooler than here in the capital. Well, again, it's a chilly morning, so please dress warmly before heading out. And that's all for Korea. And here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, those are the stories we have for you this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time, and we'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates. I'll be back at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.